I'm not a monkey.
You originated from what?
I come from God, ma'am.
Black people, all they do is taking over everything. You can't even go into the store anymore like you want black people.
God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I come from God, though.
They're getting black. Every time you go to the store, all you see is black. Look at your hair. That looks awful.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, the homozygous NN is a half white, half black person, right? And so they have a 25% chance of birthing a full black nigger, and a 50% chance of birthing a half black nigger. And on that off chance, 25% chance of birthing a triplet, which is a white child of two black parents of homozygous genetic traits.
That's heterozygous.
Oh, heterozygous. Oh, the most common is the nigger. They're everywhere.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, at some point, we're going to have to learn that our enemy cannot be reasoned with. And to be honest with you, we don't have to explain anything to them. The only thing we have to do is get on code and do what we're supposed to be doing. But we're busy trying to convince them not to harm us. But then they say we're the ones that's causing division for even speaking about it. Then after they spill our blood and then justify it, they turn around and shame us if we talk about defending ourselves. All of a sudden, that's not the answer. Although when they do it to us, it's justified. But we can't get involved in somebody else's justice system and expect to change it. We're trying to change a system that has its roots in injustice. You can't plant an apple seed and expect to get oranges. Yet we expect this system to give us justice. But this system has been designed to hurt us. And the system of white supremacy has to be destroyed. No matter what we do, we're treated the same. America loves to talk about respecting the veterans. And even though so many of us fought to defend this country, historically, black veterans have been treated even worse. Back in 1917 in Texas, just because some black soldiers came to Houston, it led to the Houston riot of 1917, also known as the Camp Logan Mutiny. Now, these black soldiers, also known as Buffalo Soldiers, were respected and revered, and their regiment was one of the most important in the army. Now, these soldiers who were coming from New Mexico, and they weren't used to the kind of Jim Crow laws that were in Texas. And even though these soldiers were there to protect everybody, including the white residents, but the white residents would continue to chastise them every chance they got. Always yelling, "Nigga, leave, go back to where you came from." And the police, who also resented the black soldiers, would always harass them, beat them up, and just violate their rights. And God forbid if they broke the law, like riding on the white side of a streetcar. Now, the white residents in Houston felt that these black men were uppity Negroes because they weren't used to the same kind of Jim Crow that existed there. And they felt like these soldiers would influence other Negroes to start acting uppity. So then one day, a cop, Lee Sparks, who was an open white supremacist and KKK member, and he used to always brag about being blacks over the head to get their heart right. But this cop, Lee Sparks, and his partner, Rufus Daniels, often patrolled in the black neighborhoods, which they enjoyed because they terrorized the black community every single day. But one day, these two cops claimed they were trying to break up a dice game. And according to them, they fired warning shots. And then everybody took off running. So then these cops claimed they saw one brother run into this black woman's house. So these cops, unannounced, just broke into her home. Now, this woman was minding her own business, ironing. And she wasn't fully dressed, basically in her pajamas. And then these two cops started questioning her like she was hiding somebody. Now, while they're questioning her, she's upset because she's standing there half dressed and two people just broke into her home. And one of these cops, Lee Sparks, is a well-known racist that everybody knows. And this black woman telling them to get out of her house because nobody else is in the house. So these two cops decide to arrest her because of her attitude. So they start pulling this black woman, Sarah Tavers, out of her house, half naked, in her pajamas. And she was trying to fight back and she started screaming for help. So one of the Buffalo Soldiers, Alonzo Edwards, heard her screaming and saw what was going on and tried to go de-escalate the situation. This brother Alonzo Edwards offered to take her into custody himself. But these two cops responded by repeatedly pistol whipping his brother and beating his brother up. Then they arrested this black soldier and this black woman. And then when word got back to camp, the corporal, Charles Baltimore, who was considered a model soldier, and he always followed orders, even whites would call him a good Negro. So this corporal, Charles Baltimore, approached the two cops, and the cop Lee Sparks, who already resented these soldiers, responded again by pistol whipping his brother. And as Charles Baltimore tried to get away, eventually the police found him hiding under the bed in somebody's home that let him in. And then the cops brutally beat him up and then arrested him. By then, rumors started getting back to the camp that Corporal Baltimore had been lynched. And this was somebody that followed every order. By then, these black soldiers had had enough. They were tired of having their civil and human rights violated, and they were tired of all the violence. And after more rumors of a lynch mob that was supposed to be coming, these soldiers started arming themselves and stockpiling ammunition. A major, who was white, tried to disarm the soldiers, but it was too late. They were already talking about taking justice in their own hands. And by then, black people were being lynched and killed so much, they adopted the slogan, "If you must die, at least take one with you." They even tried to bring the brother Charles Baltimore back to camp to calm them down, but it was already too late. One black soldier, Vida Henry, tried to warn the major that these soldiers were armed and ready to take justice in their own hands. And as the major tried to line the soldiers up, one person shot into the air and said the lynch mob was coming. So the soldiers just started firing randomly into buildings that were around them. The sergeant, Vida Henry, that had warned the major in the first place, turned out to be one of the leaders in the uprising. He told them to grab as many weapons and as much ammunition as they could. And then he started leading the troops 2.5 miles into Houston. They started shooting at the first white homes they came across, killing white people, including teenagers. And they were shooting at every white person they saw, but they left every black person unharmed. Some of the soldiers even warned their mulatto friends because they were going to shoot at anything that isn't black. When one car passed with 2 whites in it, they opened fire. Then the next car that passed had 2 black people in it, and they let them go unharmed. And when the white residents heard what was going on, they started raiding the gun stores, trying to get any ammunition they could. Then the police started raiding every black person home looking for these Buffalo Soldiers, including the home of a 6-year-old Henrietta Wells, who became a famous debater. And the character in the movie The Great Debaters was based off her. But as the police were going through every black person home one by one, the white residents started gathering at the police station, and the cops just started giving out guns, deputizing random white citizens. But the Buffalo Soldiers continued to march, stopping several cars, including police cars. One car they stopped had 4 cops in it, including the cop Rufus Daniels, who was involved in the initial incident. The soldiers ended up shooting the cop Rufus Daniels. Then they started beating his face with the butt of their guns and stabbing him with bayonets. And that was payback for the beating he gave Charles Baltimore and other black soldiers. Then these soldiers shot into another car they thought the Houston police was in. But he turned out to be in the National Guard, not the Houston police. Now, after they shot this white man in the National Guard, many of them felt like they were making a mistake, and they immediately stopped shooting and then went back to camp. Now, the Sergeant Vida Henry, who was injured, refused to go back to camp, and he ended up shooting himself. And by the end of the riot, after a few hours, 16 whites ended up getting killed, including 5 cops, and another white person died later, making it 17. Now, only 3 of the Buffalo Soldiers were killed, making this one of the few race riots where more white people were killed than black. Now, after the riot, of course, the dominant society were pissed. They went from black home to home, taking away weapons and arresting people at random. And the soldiers had to be sent out of town to avoid being lynched. But instead of calling it a race riot or a rebellion, they called it a mutiny. And after 3 court-martials, around 118 soldiers were charged, and 64 ended up going to trial in Texas. Now, this was the largest court-martial in American history, but the military tried to keep it on the low. They tried to speed through the trial, and all 64 soldiers had to use one lawyer that never actually worked a court case, and they only gave them 1 week to prepare. Now, even though these soldiers were facing the death penalty, they all got on code and maintained a vow of silence. They didn't even talk to their own lawyer. There were probably some people who weren't involved that were arrested, and some people who were involved that wasn't arrested. But nobody said anything. Eventually, 54 were found guilty on all charges, and 41 were given life in prison. Another 4 were also found guilty, but they were given less time, and 5 people ended up getting acquitted. Now, they ended up accusing 13 of them of being the masterminds, including Charles Baltimore, because they say him getting beat up started the whole thing. Now, all the way to the end, these soldiers showed no fear. They didn't beg for mercy. They weren't crying. They weren't smiling. They just kept a stone face and showed no emotion. They wouldn't give them the satisfaction of showing an emotion. And all these brothers went out like the warriors that they were. Now, 10 of the 41 doing life were granted clemency, but everybody stayed on code and nobody ever said a word. Even the people who did life in prison never said a word. They understood the situation they were in and understood they were never going to get justice anyway. This court system is theirs and was never made to protect us anyway. And these black soldiers, the Buffalo Soldiers, understood they had to take justice in their own hands in order to get it. And today we have to realize we are all we got. We have to protect ourselves. In Vermont, a black congresswoman and lawmaker, Kiah Morris, the only black woman state representative in Vermont, had to resign because of racist attacks. Now let's see what led this black woman, Kiah Morris, to be forced to resign.
For 2 years, we lived in my husband's childhood home, feeling unsafe.
Former State Representative Kiah Morris stepped away from her House seat last year after a series of racial threats. Her husband getting emotional reading some of the online comments written about his wife.
That black racist don't tread on us. When the time comes for negotiation is over, whites will be ready for the war. Thanks for resigning. Now please move out of my state.
But Vermont's Attorney General TJ Donovan says after 4 months of investigating, there's not enough evidence to prosecute anyone for some of the incidents that included vandalism and a home invasion, and he cannot take negative commenters to court.
I find the statements presented to us in this matter, while racist, insulting, and degrading, are not subject to prosecution. The Constitution does not permit us to prosecute racist speech because we find it offensive.
Instead, Donovan announced a new bias incident reporting system and new bias training for local law enforcement. Bennington police were questioned by some on their handling of a perceived death threat on Morris's husband's computer.
My agency has been completely cooperative with the Attorney General's office. We have provided every document. We've had conversation along the way, and that's a protocol that Mr. Donovan and I have agreed that needs to be worked on about how we take digital items that have digital capability, computers, iPads, iPhones, we get them to the Vermont State Police. There needs to be a protocol.
But as officials called for the community to come together, this happened.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Self-described internet troll Max Misch, who was named in the Attorney General's investigation and who Vermont Superior Court ruled had stalked Morris and had to stay away from her for a year in 2016, came wearing a Pepe the Frog t-shirt. It's an image some supporting Kiah Morris say is offensive.
Why do you have to walk into a valuable community conversation with that symbol of hate?
Because I can.
Now Morris says there's more work to do.
It unfortunately needs to be said that I am not the cause of racism in this state. Our local, regional, state economic challenges cannot be laid at my feet. It is not on me to make everyone whole again. Nor is it my burden to help us all heal from this moment. That is your work today.
Now, although this black woman, this congresswoman, Kiah Morris, is married to a white dude, she's still getting the same treatment black politicians have been getting since Reconstruction. Since the 1800s, things like this have made some black politicians resign. And all her white husband can do about it is cry. Now, ever since she was elected in 2016, she's been getting constant death threats. And there are entire threads online just about her. And people making racist cartoons about her. And some talking about how could whites let her get elected in the first place. And then she started finding swastikas on trees by her home. She said her home was vandalized. And she said she even had a number of home invasions. Somebody left death threats all on her computer. And one white boy, Max Misch, who calls himself a white nationalist and a white supremacist, harassed her online for months. And then this white boy started stalking her, showing up at different events she was at. And he said he did it because he can, which is why we shouldn't let them be able to. Now, Kiah Morris did go to the police looking for protection, but Vermont being the second whitest state in the union, the Attorney General TJ Donovan said there's nothing he can do about it. And the Constitution does not permit them to prosecute racists. The police and DA were basically saying they would have to lynch her before they could do anything about it. Now, other politicians in our state, like Bernie Sanders, said he was shocked and sad that somebody had to resign for a reason like this. Now, he never said anything about anybody going to jail and never brought up somebody being punished for what they did. He's just shocked that it happened. And the Attorney General, TJ Donovan, said they considered charges like criminal threatening or stalking, but they didn't see this as a level of true threat. However, despite all the passes and excuses they were making for these white supremacist terrorists, the white boy Max Misch kept taking it further and further until they had no choice but to charge him with something.
Brian, Stephanie, Max Misch didn't speak at his court arraignment today. Vermont's Attorney General says Misch bought 2 high-capacity gun magazines while out of state. Owning those is illegal in Vermont, according to 2 new laws signed by the governor last year.
To the best of my knowledge, this is the first criminal charge as a result of the law that was passed last year.
Misch pleaded not guilty in Bennington court to the 2 gun-related charges he faces. Less than a month ago, Donovan announced his office would not seek a legal battle against Misch for allegedly racially harassing Kiah Morris online, citing the right to free speech. She was Vermont's only black female legislator and decided not to seek re-election because of harassment. Misch even showed up when the Attorney General released the findings of that investigation.
Why do you have to walk into a valuable community conversation with that symbol of hate?
Because I can.
Donovan says these charges aren't meant to be vindictive.
We treat everybody with respect.
Misch self-identifies as a white supremacist. According to court paperwork, he legally bought an assault-style rifle in Vermont last fall and later made the trek to New Hampshire to buy 2 30-round magazines. His estranged wife told her therapist, who later told police. The documents say the Bennington Police Department investigated similar claims about him 2 months before.
We did not receive that information. As I said, we received this new information in the week of January 22nd.
Going forward, Misch is not allowed to own guns. He also cannot contact his estranged wife, Kiah Morris, or her husband. Both Misch's attorney and Kiah Morris declined comment. Attorney General TJ Donovan says that there's no evidence to say that Misch's gun purchases are tied to his previous racial statements, but did note that there has been ongoing dialogue where Misch has made racist statements against Morris online.
Now, the whole time this white boy Max Misch had been making terrorist threats against this black woman, Kiah Morris, he was stockpiling guns and ammunition. His ex-wife told the therapist, who told the police, that he was buying guns, large-capacity magazines, and stockpiling ammunition. And she said he got his rocks off by being a keyboard warrior threatening people online. The police said he had just bought an AK-47 and several 30-round clips. And then when they searched his home, they found 2 30-round magazines. And the police ended up arresting him, but they let him go with a court order. But then 2 months after a court order prohibiting him from buying or owning or shooting guns, he ended up buying another handgun. So the police ended up arresting him again, but yet again, another judge decided to release him.
My nephew didn't get no conditions. Okay? My nephew didn't get no conditions, guys. This is unfair. He should be locked up.
You should be locked up.
He's violent.
You made threats against him.
He should be locked up.
You should be locked up.
He's violent.
Shut the fuck up.
And you keep letting him walk out of here, guys. My nephew couldn't, he was in jail for a whole year, Your Honor. A whole year. A whole year for nothing. He's black. Keep up with these racial disparities, guys. We're watching all of it. It's ridiculous.
Max Misch is open about his controversial views against gays, minorities, and Jews. He is pending trial for charges linked to Vermont's high-capacity gun magazine ban.
There is no such thing as hate speech.
Misch also previously made threatening statements online toward Kiah Morris, who resigned last year as the only elected state representative of color, partly due to Misch's harassment. Court documents say Misch violated his release in April when he bought a gun at a store in Bennington. Though he didn't walk out with it, Bennington police arrested him Friday, the Attorney General pursuing charges.
I think the conditions of release that were imposed by the court, which is pretty standard in every criminal case, was very clear. Don't possess or purchase a firearm. As to whether that constitutes a violation of that release, that is for the court to find.
Misch pled not guilty, but didn't have to pay more bail money. The judge added another condition to his release. He's no longer able to enter stores primarily selling guns. As the hearing ended, a dramatic protest from a community member.
This is unfair. He should be locked up.
You should be locked up.
He's violent.
You made threats against him.
He should be locked up.
You should be locked up.
He's violent. And you keep letting him walk out of here, guys.
Misch allowed to walk free, remaining a divisive member of the community.
You keep letting him walk. Why is he walking?
Now, they ended up letting this white boy go again after he violated the terms of his first release. Then the judge, William D. Cohen, decided not to give him a bail at all, not even a $200 bail. He didn't make this white boy pay anything. The only thing he did was add one stipulation. He said he can't go into any store that primarily sells guns. But if they sell other things and guns and ammunition, then it's okay. The police say they can't connect his terrorist threats, his white supremacy mindset, and all the guns he was buying in order to charge him for what he's doing to this black woman. And now Kiah Morris, who is the only black woman who was a state representative, was forced to resign. And there's a reason why they don't punish people who have the mindset of this white boy. In America, white supremacy terrorism isn't a crime. And there's nothing they can do until blood is shed. And even after that, they only really get a slap on the wrist. But you calling out racism is the thing that makes you racist. And that has always been a crime in America. In New York, when those cops were hit with water on a hot day over 100 degrees, then they're outraged and consider that disrespect. Threatening us, vandalizing our home, breaking into our home, that's okay. But pouring water on cops on a hot day, now that's crossing the line. And it's not a joke anymore. The mayor, Bill De Blasio, said this is unacceptable and won't be tolerated. And the police chief called it reprehensible. And of course, the police union spoke out calling for charges. Now, these are the same people that sprayed you with water hoses while they let their dogs attack you. But now pouring water on cops is taking it too far. And the media talking about nobody helped these cops. And they immediately put these brothers' face on the news, calling them criminals, bringing up their past. And 3 people were immediately arrested and charged. Now, to be honest with you, we have to start responding like them. We have to respond with more urgency than they do to get out of the position that we are in. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And if we don't get on code and do what we have to do and protect ourselves, we're going to continue to get the same results that we have always got.
New tonight, outrage among NYPD union leaders and the mayor after NYPD officers were doused with buckets of water during an arrest. One large bucket even hit one of the officers in the head. Now, News 4's Michael George is live in Harlem with the details here. Michael.
Yeah, these videos are now going viral. They show NYPD officers being disrespected on the jobs, being doused with water. Now, some people call this a prank, but the NYPD says this crossed the line. A crowd in Harlem throws buckets and pours water on officers in the middle of making an arrest. In a separate incident, another video shows it happening again. Bystanders laugh and record videos, but no one helps.
Yo, they violated them! They violated them! No, they violated them! Oh, they not stopping! Oh my God!
That is terrible.
The videos were posted to social media, which caught the attention of the NYPD. Now they have people talking in Harlem. Many praise the officers for ignoring the harassment and continuing to do their jobs.
That's like the high road to take.
I guess they did, the best thing they can do, just walk away.
The police union blames City Hall for inciting what they call anti-police sentiment. But some say this is indicative of the attitude many people have towards police.
That's always the root behind these problems there, police and community relations, when it deteriorates, then you have these problems here.
Mayor De Blasio calls the crowd's actions completely unacceptable, tweeting, "The NYPD kept New Yorkers safe through the heat wave and last night's outages. We won't tolerate this kind of disrespect." The NYPD's chief, Terrence Monahan, says what happened to those officers was reprehensible. Every New Yorker must show respect for our cops. They deserve nothing less. Now, the NYPD is investigating one of those incidents here in Harlem, another in Brooklyn. The people involved could potentially face criminal charges.
Well, what started out as a playground game is landing a 10-year-old in court on assault charges. He's accused of throwing a ball that hit and injured another child. 7 Action News reporter Jen Shans talked to parents tonight, joins us live from Canton with more on how all this happened. Jen?
Well, Dave, it all happened here outside Erickson Elementary in Canton back in early April. That's where the 2 boys were playing, and that's where this incident occurred. But just a few days ago, one of the mothers was informed that her 10-year-old is charged with aggravated assault in juvenile court.
These kids are basically playing a game that we all have played.
But on April 29th, what seemed like a harmless game ended with one student getting seriously hurt. According to the boy's mother, who asked we not show her face, he has a rare medical condition, making head injuries especially dangerous. According to a police report, during that game, another student threw a ball at his face on purpose.
He sustained facial tissue damage to his face. He had a black eye and a bruised nose.
Records show the then 4th grader also suffered a concussion. His condition is something Kamishi Lindley says she and her son, Bryce, knew nothing about. Wednesday, Bryce was charged with aggravated assault.
I couldn't believe it.
This is on top of a one-day suspension, which occurred right after the incident.
This is a kid that was playing on the playground with his friends.
I tried not to let it get to this point.
This mother claiming her son had been hurt before and that she reported it to the school.
My son was hit twice in the face with a ball previously due to this, and the child apologized to my son, and he said, "Mom, it's okay. We're still going to be friends."
I'm unaware of any of those situations. Sorry that her child got hurt. I'd be sorry for any child that got hurt.
Lindley wishing that this could be solved in the classroom and not in court. Both mothers are telling me that this has really affected both of their children's ability to look forward to the coming school year. They're going into the 5th grade. Meanwhile, this case will be in juvenile court August 1st for a pretrial hearing.
Come on, we come out. Let's walk out. Don't put your light in my face. All right.
Nicholas Joseph Fury, agent of SHIELD.
You're a sucker.
Nicholas Joseph Fury, with 3 names.
Now the police is here because the staff here just came up to me out the blue from coming to the bathroom and said that I didn't pay and didn't have a ticket. So what you guys had to say to me now?
So
what's the deal?
These guys said you didn't buy a ticket. You have a ticket.
Ask him why he say that.
I don't know why I said it.
Why you say I didn't have a ticket?
Sir, you walked in the exit door, and my staff warned me that they did not sell you a ticket, that you didn't get your ticket.
That's what you're saying now, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
You're 100% sure of that?
I'm sure. Nobody's standing.
All the staff is 100% sure of that? All the staff is 100% sure of that, right? Would you hold this? Well, I'll put it.
Yeah,
You
got a ticket. I don't have any tickets, so.
Now I want to see the manager now.
I am the manager, sir.
Who's your boss?
This is a ticket that was.
Who's your?
It does look like it was purchased.
Who's your boss?
Sold.
No. Now, what does that ticket say on there, sir? What does it say?
It was indeed, but you should have shown me the ticket.
No, I shouldn't. You just came up me out the blue. He automatically assumed.
You walked in the exit door.
I didn't walk in the exit door. I went to the bathroom and got a refill.
My staff said they had not seen you. They saw you walk in the exit door, so I just asked you for a ticket. So
You know how mad I am right now? You know how embarrassed this is? You know how embarrassed this is? And I told him, I said, go check the videotape, then come back to me.
So you know what? It wouldn't be embarrassing at all. There's nobody going to go. Troy couldn't go check the videotape.
Man, this is embarrassing. For somebody to come up to me out the blue, this is embarrassing, man.
Long ago, instead of having all
this is embarrassing.
Have to call the police, and now you produce a ticket talking about how embarrassing.
But I told him to go check. It seemed. If somebody come up to you out the blue and say, "Get out of here," you came out. I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Quit playing." I said, "Get out of here! Quit playing with me, man."
Show the damn ticket. All you had to do is show the ticket. That's it.
Man, it don't matter if I said go check the tape. You should be what?
Okay, listen.
Shouldn't they be 100% sure if they're blaming somebody? Shouldn't they be 100%?
I don't. This is not my place of.
I'm just saying.
So
shouldn't you be 100%?
Listen, hear me out for a second. A couple of options. It's private property. If they want you to stay and watch a movie, you're more than welcome. It's up to them. If they want you to leave, that's up to them. If you want a refund, that's up to them. We're out of it. This is a civil matter between you and them, not us. There's no crime that we can determine.
Who's your boss, man? So. I want to talk to your boss.
Tommy Fletcher, I'll give you a card. But
give me a card, man.
It's not a
you see how this is, man?
Listen,
you see this?
It's nothing to really see. If you just showed the ticket in the beginning,
shut up. Shut up.
Catch you later.
Shut up.
All
right. And I want a refund.
No, we're not giving you a refund. You violated our code of conduct. You turn your flashlight on in the theater. It says on the back.
You see this now, man? You see this, man? I'm calling the news right now, and I'm sending them this tape right now, okay? You're going to look like an idiot. And he kicked me out. Don't want to give me a refund. He saw the ticket that I have. Give me all my ticket stub. This is the ticket stub that proved that I paid to get in here.
Hey sir, how you doing?
Doing well, how are you?
Hey, good. Hey, do you live here?
I do, yes.
Okay, where do you live at?
In this apartment right here.
Oh, okay. You got ID on you?
No, I don't.
You don't have ID?
Well, I do have an ID, but do I have to show it to you?
You don't have ID on you?
I do have an ID.
Okay.
Do I have to show it to you?
You don't have to. Is this your car?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Is there a problem?
What building do you live in?
This building right here.
What's the address?
I don't have to show. I don't have to tell you the address.
What's that?
Do I need to tell you the address?
Yeah, what's the address?
Why do I need to tell you my address?
No, I'm asking you what the address is.
But why do I need to tell you that?
Because I'm asking you.
But is there a reason why you're asking me?
Because I want to know if you live here, because if you don't live here...
I just told you I do live here.
Right, but if you don't know the address, it doesn't look like to me like you live here, okay?
And why is that?
I'll be honest with you.
Why is that?
Whose vehicle is this?
This is my vehicle.
Is it in your name?
It's in my mom's name and it's in my name also.
Okay. How long have you lived in this area?
Do I have to tell you that?
I'm just asking you a question.
Okay, but why are you asking me these questions?
Do you live here or not, sir?
I already told you, I do live here.
Okay, because if you don't live here, you're trespassing.
I know that, and I told you, I live here.
Okay. So what's the address that you live at?
Why do I have to tell you that?
Because I don't believe you live here, sir.
And why don't you believe me? Why don't you believe I live here?
Because you don't know the address.
I already told you I do know the address.
Okay, what's the address that you live here?
I don't have to tell you that. I live here. Why are you harassing me?
Okay. I'm not harassing you. Okay?
You're in my neighborhood, coming up to me, asking me what my address is because you say I don't live here. Why don't you believe I live here?
Sir, I'm not harassing you. Okay?
All right, can I have your name and badge number?
You can. Detective Bush, and my badge number is 4077.
Okay. Thank you.
So do you have an ID on you or not?
I do. I already told you I do have an ID.
Okay. What's your name?
I don't have to tell you that. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
You're free to go, sir.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
You were not a victim. Tanya, you were not a victim. This woman is calling the police on me after they told me I went to the ATM and got cash. They told me that I did not have enough money, in my account when I have enough money in my account. And now Tanya is calling the police on me after I've asked her to process my payment. This woman is calling the police at me in CVS when I have cash, and I have asked her several times to process my payment. Take my money and process my payment so that I can get my prescriptions. I'm at CVS and I'm having the police called on me. I won't coddle your feelings.
Take a step back and let me try and help
Tanya, the way that you can help me now is to process my payment and allow me to leave this establishment, because that's what I want to do.
Okay, well, you've already forfeited that.
I didn't forfeit anything. I never attacked you. I never attacked you. I didn't attack you. Fault. That's not your fault, and I didn't blame you for that. Last month, my prescription was messed up. That was not your fault. But the issue was when I'm there in the car, Samir's trying to process the payment. It's not processing. Instead of trying another register, you tell me I don't have enough money when I know that I do.
We tried it there several
It's fine. We don't even have to go over it again. Just please.
You sign up for the prescription only.
It's just wild to me, just the immediacy of calling the police just because your feelings are hurt is just absolutely absurd.
Just wants her to do that if they're having problems.
What was the problem? She wanted me to hear her out. Is that against the law that I don't want to listen to her? It was stern. And like I said, none of this would have happened if I wasn't black. But I just want to get my stuff and go. I don't care if you have black friends. What does that mean to me?
That means that
No, it does not mean that you're not racist. What's my change? It's enough to have to come in here and, and combine pay $200. What was wrong with the machine? It's a lot of things that went wrong.
It's a lot of things that went wrong, but I'll take it up with corporate. I will be taking that up. I got Debbie, Samira, and Tanya. Got your names, got my recording. Thank you, ma'am.
A fourth grade teacher says he was attacked early Saturday morning when he was out driving for Lyft and Uber. He tells reporter Liliana Pearson at least 4 people used their fists and feet to damage his car.
Jeremy Williams says that he was inside of his car picking someone up for a Lyft ride when a group of people approached his car, told him he didn't look like he belonged in their neighborhood, and told him to leave.
We saw like shoe prints here, so we know that someone kicked the car right here, which I'm thinking they must have kicked it pretty hard to make a dent of that size in the car.
Jeremy Williams says he doesn't know what he did to deserve that kind of harassment.
Is it my glasses that makes me look like I don't belong here? Is it like my new car wash? Is it, I don't know what it is besides the fact that I am in the neighborhood and I'm black.
Williams says he was at the corner of Blackwater Bay and Garland Street in Lincoln when a white pickup truck pulled up beside him and that statement was made. You don't look like you belong here.
I was just in shock. I didn't know. I was taking it all and I didn't know what was going on.
He says he told the man that he was there to pick up a rider, then rolled up his window.
He wasn't like hitting it hard, but he was like kind of like tapping on it, I think, trying to get me to move. So at that point, I'm thinking, how can I de-escalate the situation?
Williams pulled around to the other side of the cul-de-sac.
They all got out of the car and just started like kicking and hitting the car. And so at that point, I called 911 and I was just trying to get out of there as fast as I could.
Williams says he's thankful his doors were locked.
How can I get out of here safely, like with my life?
Because his attackers kept trying to open them.
That was my worst fear, was that they were going to break my windows and get inside and hurt me. I'm thinking, if they're doing this to my car, imagine what they're going to do to you.
Lincoln police say they have interviewed everyone involved but have conflicting stories. Now they're focused on finding any home surveillance video that can help them understand what happened. Williams told me that he drove for Uber and Lyft to pay for extra school supplies and decorations in his classroom. But after he was attacked in this neighborhood, he said that he's decided to stop driving altogether. And this year, his classroom might have to go without.
A Michigan beauty pageant winner and outspoken supporter of President Trump has her crown revoked. She claims it was over her political views. Kathy Jew was abruptly stripped of her title of Miss Michigan last week after some past tweets came to the attention of pageant officials. And Kathy Jew joins us now. Kathy, thanks for being here. So just to get the story straight, the pageant officials said that they found your social media content to be offensive, insensitive, and inappropriate. Do you see why they felt that way?
Honestly, you shouldn't just take tweets out of context. I think it's super important to the full context of the tweet and the full conversation. Everything I've posted was my statistics and opinions, and I think that we should be empowering women's voices and not just stripping them of their title only because of their opinions.
So let's look at some of your posts that I think that they had objections to. So here was one. This was from October 2017. I think it was in reference to some conversation about Black Lives Matter. You wrote, "Did you know the majority of black deaths are caused by other blacks? Fix problems within your own community first before blaming others." So do you see how that could be seen as offensive?
This tweet was actually in response to another person talking about how all blacks or all cops are bad people, that they kill innocent black people. And I think that you shouldn't just put a blanket statement over all cops. Again, read full tweets and context to make sure to see the full story.
Yeah, but I guess your point of, did you know the majority of black deaths are caused by other blacks? What's your point?
That's a statistics. You can find that on FBI's website. This is all backed up by statistics and facts. I think it's really, really awful how the left thinks that statistics and facts are racist. So I don't think anything I said was remotely wrong. I stand by every tweet that I post.
And do you know who causes the majority of white deaths?
Yeah, this is, apparently this is white people cause white deaths. It's not even that's the issue. The issue is that people didn't know that I was responding to another person calling cops bad people.
Right, I guess my point is, why would you focus on blacks causing black deaths when the majority of white deaths are caused by white people? Why, this is why people think that has a ring of racism to it. You didn't mention the white statistic.
Again, this is in response to another person's tweet talking about how cops kill black people. And this is, I can't just take a tweet and just, turn it around saying, oh, white and white violence too. Of course, everyone has problems with their own communities, and I completely understand that. But, we have to empower women's voices, honestly, to show that, we could have different political opinions and that not just statistics and facts are racist.
Well, first of all, the pageant wasn't calling you racist. They were saying insensitive and offensive content. And again, you're the person who focused in on that statistic. That's the statistic that you decided to highlight instead of police excessive force, showing those statistics. And so this is what got the attention of pageant officials.
That's actually false, because if you read the text through the state director, she actually quoted the tweet that I said and said, is this racist? This is racist, right? I mean, again, this is taken fully out of context. And I think that, if you actually think that statistics and facts are racist, I don't know what to tell you. I think, again,
it's just which ones you highlight. I mean, it's just which ones you highlight, since, you could have said the thing about white people.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we are still in the same position that we were 150 years ago. And we're still waiting, just expecting a change, hoping that something will come and save us. We have to understand the dominant society doesn't see us the same, and they never will. And we shouldn't be trying to convince them anyway. And we shouldn't be trying to save their system either. We should be trying to destroy it. Even when you try to change the system from within, if we do anything to help ourselves, then there's a problem. And we need to be put back in our place. Back in 1917, in East St. Louis, Illinois, so many of us were massacred in the East St. Louis riots, all because the dominant society felt like these uppity Negroes need to be put back in their place. Now, the massacre started because white residents started unionizing and going on strike. So instead of paying the white residents, these companies started hiring black people and paying them less than they were paying white workers anyway. And the white residents were mad and felt like they were crossing the picket line. Now, mind you, these unions didn't allow black people in, and they were created to keep black people from getting jobs over white people. So I don't know why they think they would have an alliance to their union, but black people were happily taking these jobs. And of course, the white residents who were already racist resented black people even more now. And they would start to spread false rumors about black crime and the crime rate in the city going up since so many black people had showed up. The whole modern day, but what about black on black crime narrative? So one day the white residents decided to have a city council meeting and decide what they were going to do with the black scabs, as they called them. So then after the meeting, they started spreading rumors of a black man robbing a white man. And a mob of anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 started to form downtown. Of course, they had to add the false rumor of black men flirting with white women. And one of them said East St. Louis must remain a white town. So then this white mob of about 3,000 started attacking every black person they came across, man, woman, and child. Attacking them while they were walking down the street or while they were on streetcars. However, this time black residents were ready and they quickly retaliated. And as soon as the black residents started fighting back, they called in the National Guard and they stopped everything before anybody was hurt. So then a couple of weeks later, some whites drove by in a black car, going through the black neighborhood, shooting up every single house. And they shot at groups of people who were standing outside, but luckily no one was hit. So then about an hour later, another black car that looked exactly the same as the car that just rolled through shooting up the neighborhood. And there's a good chance that it was the same car and the same people. But there were 4 white people in this car, including 2 cops. But this time the black men were ready. And they ended up killing one of the cops on the spot and shooting the other one who died later. But this time black men were armed and ready. So then the next day, a white mob gathered around the car the cops had been shot in. And the lynch mob of thousands of whites began attacking every black man, woman, and child they saw. One family who was simply returning home from a day trip out of town was attacked as soon as they got off the train. The mob ended up killing the father and the son, but the mother and the daughter ended up getting away. They ended up going into the black neighborhoods and black business districts where they outnumbered and outarmed the black residents. And they started beating black men, women, and children to death. They started setting black people's homes on fire. And then armed mobs would wait outside and shoot anybody who ran out the house. Families had to choose between being burnt to death and being shot to death. And the mob cut the hoses of any firefighter who tried to put out any fires. They didn't care if it was a man, a woman, a child, the elderly. They were killing everybody they could. They said these southern uppity niggas deserve a good lynching. So they just lynched several random black men. as well as women and children. They were killing so many people and just dumping their bodies in the lake, to the point where the water started turning red. Some black residents were scared and hid, waiting for a chance to run. Some met at churches praying the mob wouldn't make it to them. And the National Guard was called in, but this time they didn't do anything to stop it. In fact, some of them were encouraging it. And of course, the police didn't do anything to stop it. Some of them were involved in it. One black woman was chased by a group of 10 to 15 white girls with clubs, and they demanded that the girl be lynched. And the lynch mob went from home to home, looting and attacking people. Josephine Baker, the singer, who was just a child at the time, had to hide in the basement of a shack until a black funeral director helped her escape. And some of the funeral directors tried to help by bringing in guns and coffins, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Then towards the end of the massacre, the white mobs just walked the street, shooting anybody who was still alive. And they also lynched a few survivors while the mob cheered. Now, the bodies of black men, women, and children were popping up for weeks afterwards. But the white media reported that only 39 black people were killed and 9 white people were killed. But Ida B. Wells in the Chicago Defender reported that anywhere from 40 to 150 people were killed. And the NAACP said anywhere from 100 to 200. But some estimates say that over 1,000 people could have been killed. And it's hard to tell because some people left and never came back. So many bodies were missing. They don't know how many people were killed. And they gathered black bodies like they were hogs. And the coroner only examined a few bodies. They examined a 2-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy who was both shot in the head. And another young child was found in the ashes hiding under a bed. Now, close to 6,000 black people were left homeless and many black businesses were destroyed. Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at the time, as racist as he was, even he had to speak out against it. But by the end, 35 people ended up getting arrested. But of that 35, 25 of them were black people, compared to only 10 white people arrested. And everybody was convicted, including the black dentist, Dr. Leroy Bundy, who was pro-black and fought for black people. And so they made him the fall guy and charged him with inciting a riot. And they ended up sentencing him to life in prison. Now understand, this mindset, all of it comes from fear. And that fear increases, especially if we're in a position in something like the justice system and do anything to empower ourselves. It's a threat if we don't just go along with the system of white supremacy. We saw it with Aramis Ayala, Florida's first black state attorney. Because she didn't get on code with white supremacy, they just took all of her cases from her. We saw it with Judge Olu Stevens. Because he didn't let a black defendant have an all-white jury, they took him off the bench and made him apologize. Now in Cincinnati, a black woman who was elected in as judge, Tracy Hunter, was removed from her position and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Now let's see how this black woman, Judge Tracy Hunter, ended up getting 6 months in jail.
Counts, weeks of testimony, but all it took was one decision to decide the fate of Judge Tracy Hunter.
Verdict, count number 6. We, the jury, in the issue joined, find the defendant, Tracy Hunter, guilty.
The pandemonium in the hallway right after the verdict shows how emotionally charged this case was and remains tonight. A short time ago, the jury foreperson, Sandra Kirkham, issued a statement. She said, "I am extremely frustrated and disappointed with the results of our deliberations. The evidence presented by the prosecution was compelling and convincing. It is very disconcerting," she goes on to say, "that a judge might so attempt to manipulate our judicial system without severe consequences." 9 on your side's Tom McKee has more from inside the court.
The trial of Judge Tracy Hunter is one that's going to be talked about for quite some time here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. 25 days of testimony, 4 days of jury deliberations, 1 guilty verdict. It's been controversial, it's been emotional, and when it came to an end, the trial judge gave his colleague quite a tongue lashing.
Since ascending to the bench, Judge Hunter has gone from potential great role model to convicted felon.
That's how Judge Norbert Nadel described his colleague, Judge Tracy Hunter, moments after these words were uttered.
We, the jury, in the issue joined, find the defendant, Tracy Hunter, guilty.
Guilty of illegally helping her brother after he was fired from a county job. Jurors were hung on guilt or innocence of 8 other criminal counts.
Judge Hunter, this is a sad day for you, your supporters, our system of justice, and your family. And I'm sad, and I know you're sad too, but that's the way it came out.
In Judge Nadel's view, the 6-week trial dealt a serious blow to public confidence in the justice system.
I believe the evidence showed serious ethical violations, which included, among others, nepotism, improper judicial temperament, tardiness in rendering decisions, and denying public access to her courtroom.
Attorney Clyde Bennett wouldn't comment on Judge Nato's remarks. Instead, he believes the conviction will be overturned on appeal.
I'm not convinced that the guilty verdict will be upheld by a court of appeals or the Ohio Supreme Court, because you can tell as a matter of law, the evidentiary buttress for that count does not meet the elements of unlawful interest in a public contract.
Judge Hunter was surrounded by supporters as she left the courthouse, and they pushed their way through reporters who wanted to know her reaction to the conviction.
Chaos in the courtroom this morning as people erupted as former Hamilton County Juvenile Court Judge Tracy Hunter was ordered to serve a 6-month jail sentence. Hunter appeared to go limp and then had to be dragged out of the courtroom by a deputy. One other person was taken into custody during that scuffle. Now, Hunter was convicted in 2014. She illegally helped her brother, a juvenile court jailer, in a disciplinary hearing. And she filed several appeals in recent years, but Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker ruled today that enough is enough. Hunter was taken to a medical center at the Hamilton County Jail. This despite cries from supporters, including the Cincinnati mayor and some council members, not to execute her sentence. 9 on your side's Paul Lucero has more.
Inside the courtroom, former juvenile court judge Tracy Hunter supporters, including State Senator Cecil Thomas, lined the benches, praying, crying, as Judge Dinkelhocker executed the sentence.
You are to do 6 months in the Hamilton County Justice Center, credit 1 day. Mr. or Ms. Deputy can take her away.
Hunter appeared to go limp, getting dragged out of the courtroom by a deputy. And through the halls to the outside of the courthouse, her supporters said justice was failed.
We cannot keep playing with these people. We cannot keep allowing this to happen to our people.
We're tired. It's not like we're asking for something that's not right. We're only asking for the bare minimums. Be fair. That's all. Just fair.
But former Judge Norbert Nadel, who sentenced Hunter back in 2014, says the 6-month sentence is nothing but fair.
It was a lot less than I could have imposed. An elected public official is held to a higher standard than anybody else.
Hunter's attorney, David Singleton, as well as Mayor John Cranley, have argued that she should be set free because she's already lost so much.
She lost her job as a judge, her law license, her ability to earn an income.
But prosecutor Joe Dieters, who wrote a letter read by Judge Dinkelhocker, said she has some, quote, type of mental condition and that she never showed remorse, something Nadel says he brought up 5 years ago.
There's never been any remorse. It was just complete fighting the system. Fight the system, fight the system. Maybe somebody will buy it, and nobody bought it.
Hunter has exhausted all her appeals. We're told Governor Mike DeWine has spoken with Dieters on commuting Hunter's sentence, but DeWine says his office has not received requests for commutation from Hunter.
I was a little dismayed by it. Went through every court, and every court agreed with what I did 5 years ago.
Mercy and justice for her not to be punished as harshly as some of the others who should have been punished.
Because the reality is this. Tracy Hunter is not a threat to society. She's not violent. And we have offenders in this county that are much more inclined to be incarcerated than Tracy Hunter.
Now, this black woman, Tracy Hunter, was elected juvenile judge in Hamilton County. And this black woman had the nerve not to be on code with white supremacy. And she had the nerve to try to give black defendants as fair a trial as possible. In just a few years as judge, they tried to do everything they could to get her out of office. And she's been sued over 20 times by the dominant society, including by the media. In one case, she didn't allow the media to bring news cameras into the courtroom to film the juvenile defendant's face. This judge also didn't allow them to use his name or show his parents. And you know it pissed the media off. They couldn't put this young underage brother picture and name out there on the news or show his parents while calling him a thug. So they ended up suing this judge, Tracy Hunter, so they could show his face. And they started doing everything they could to remove her off the bench. They were basically calling this judge a uppity Negro that has to be put back in her place. They tried to hit her with all kinds of charges, including using a credit card. And they charged her with 8 different felonies. But they had no proof, so they had to drop all of them except for one. They found this woman guilty of trying to help her brother not get fired. Even though a prosecutor, Joe Dieter, said this crime isn't enough for somebody to go to jail for, he said it was because of her attitude that she was sentenced to prison. Judge Norbert Nader talking about she went from having a chance to be a great role model to becoming a felon. And then this judge started lecturing her about ethics before he sentenced her to 6 months.
Judge Tracy Hunter! New at 11, growing demands to release former Judge Tracy Hunter from jail. You're looking at new video of a demonstration tonight outside the home of the judge who sentenced her to jail.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the most recent development in a story that we've been covering closely for you all day.
Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker sentenced Hunter to 6 months. Now, she was convicted 5 years ago of illegally helping her brother, who was a juvenile court jailer, in a disciplinary hearing.
Chaos erupted in the courtroom right after the judge read that sentence. You can see the scene here. Hunter appeared to go limp as she stood up from her seat there. A deputy removed her from the courtroom.
Hunter is in jail tonight. Hamilton County Sheriff Jim Neal says she is being housed in the medical facility at the Justice Center, where she will be constantly monitored by medical professionals.
9 on your side's Kristen Swilley joins us live right now from the jail with the latest developments. Kristen?
Yeah, good evening, guys. The supporters of Tracy Hunter say until she leaves here, they'll keep demonstrating. Just hours ago, they took their fight to Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker's doorstep, and for the first time tonight, he is responding.
Dinkelhocker got to go! Dinkelhocker got to go!
It was a demonstration of anger and frustration.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
That brought this quiet Green Township neighborhood to the front lines of a city's divide.
This is not where we want to be. We don't want to be doing this. We don't want to be out in front of Dinkelhocker's house.
Members of the NAACP, the Black United Front, and other activists were here for about an hour, and they say this is only the beginning.
For every day that she sits in that cage for no reason whatsoever, there will be no peace.
State Senator Cecil Thomas has known Hunter for more than 20 years. He says her sentence will create long-term implications for the city.
We will be asking and encouraging not to spend any money for those coming to the festival. We are asking those who have the opportunity to cancel their reservations.
When the crowd cleared, a new one formed in front of Judge Dinkelhocker's home. He came out to thank them.
There's a lot of good stuff in Hamilton County, and you guys do it every day.
He told me he's very unhappy and surprised that people would come in and, quote, scare the living daylights out of his elderly neighbors, while acknowledging it was their right to protest.
I'm very happy that you blessed me with being allowed to serve you as a judge, and thank you for your support.
While the tone on this street changed, the outrage continues.
What we saw today was exactly what's wrong with the criminal justice system here in Hamilton County.
Regardless of how long Tracy Hunter remains in jail, she will stay where she has been since Monday, in the medical facility North Tower of the Justice Center. The sheriff says that's absolute.
I'll tell you for 2 reasons. One, because of her medical condition qualifies her to be there, and 2, it keeps her out of the general population, and because she was a former judge, I have to protect her.
As some of her supporters demonstrated at noon,
We'll see her on the outside.
the sheriff cleared up confusion about whether he could release her on his own. He cannot. This court ruling from 2016 clearly spells it out. The sheriff lacks legal authority to release a sentenced offender based on overcrowding or budget shortfalls unless ordered by a court or the governor. Hunter is a sentenced offender.
Tracy Hunter is a low-level felon with no priors. And generally speaking, they shouldn't be in jail.
However, prosecutor Joe Dieters points to her lack of remorse, lack of cooperation, and combative attitude, which leaves this.
The way to shorten her sentence is by her volunteering to sign up and do detail work.
She has yet to sign up for that, but has already led a Bible study for women in the jail. The sheriff tells us she could earn 3 days off her 6-month sentence for every one she works. Can't compel her to do it, but he'd like to see it.
There's no better way of earning time than serving God, that's for sure.
Now, this sister was able to stay out of jail for a while she appealed the decision. But of course they upheld it. And even though they admitted whatever she did doesn't warrant jail time, they claim because of her attitude, she doesn't show any remorse for whatever she did. The prosecutor, Joe Dieters, and the judge, Norbert Nadel, with their unprofessional opinions, claimed that Sister Tracy Hunter had a mental condition because she wanted to fight the white supremacy system. To them, they're claiming anybody who wants to fight the white supremacy system has a mental illness. But then again, they used to say slaves that run away had a mental illness. Now, this is the same system where white judges help white boys who are total strangers when they actually rape somebody. This is systems that help white boys like that white boy Craig Grooms, who molested a black 1-year-old baby girl and put it on the internet. He didn't do a day in jail. But they don't think twice about cases like that and when judges let these people off the hook. But this black woman helping her brother, now that's crossing the line. But that's because these judges are more likely to do the same thing and help out a white boy who's been accused of rape. And Cincinnati has a history of racism. Cincinnati just had a race riot back in 2001, which started after a young unarmed brother, Timothy Thomas, was shot in the back by police.
In Cincinnati, the FBI has begun investigating if police violated civil rights law when they shot and killed an unarmed teenager on Saturday. He is the 4th black man killed by Cincinnati police since November and the 15th since 1995. Many people are angry. ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Cincinnati tonight.
Mostly young crowds were on the streets for a second time in 12 hours today, protesting the latest shooting death of a black man by police. The riots today and overnight erupted in the wake of the shooting on Saturday of 19-year-old Timothy Thomas. Thomas, who was unarmed, had 14 misdemeanor warrants for his arrest. He was shot as he was chased on foot by police. He is the 4th African-American killed here by police since just November. Yesterday, his mother attended an emotional city council meeting.
You took a part of my life from me.
All right. Yes,
so I demand to know why.
The police chief apologized and promised an investigation. The officer involved in the shooting said he feared Thomas was drawing a gun. But a police videotape of at least part of the incident, a tape that might help the public understand what happened, was impounded by authorities for a possible grand jury investigation. Mayor Charles Lucan acknowledges his city is deeply divided along racial lines.
I'm as frustrated as everybody else in this city, and I don't have a rabbit in the hat to make it go away.
Black leaders who have sued the city over racial profiling say the police force should stop sending inexperienced white officers into black neighborhoods.
Most of the shootings are based on subjective fear of blacks as opposed to objective factors to justify you shooting in fear of your own life.
Late today, the mayor here said the situation is scary and it reminded him of the civil rights clashes of the 1960s.
The drumbeat of police batons on riot shields
Inside, disperse.
Was as steady as the rain. But even Mother Nature couldn't cool the anger that erupted in Over the Rhine.
It's on now, bitch. We ready. I just got shot in the back with one of them things with my back turned like they did my friend downtown.
They kill us, man. They murder us, man.
The fatal police shooting of a 19-year-old African-American during a chase sparked the explosion. But the anger between police and the African-American community has smoldered for years.
You got the people down at City Hall, they got all these degrees, but nobody understands a simple phrase that enough is enough.
When it comes down to black people, they're just terrible. You know, you don't have no win whatsoever. As far as you could be in.
The sound of scattered gunshots blended with blasts from police guns firing beanbags, tear gas. It mixed with the taunting of demonstrators into a sometimes surreal but dangerous mix in which a pregnant woman was shot with a beanbag.
He told me to go on my door, and I told him I couldn't get in. I told him I couldn't get in. I told him I live right here, and he said so, and just shot me in my leg.
Ministers trying to calm the crowd admitted the anger was too great.
Everyone here are not thugs and punks and that kind of thing. These people are concerned, for their lives. Been mistreated and abused in some situations, and I mean, let's face it, we've got to come together.
Now, this riot started after Cincinnati police started chasing his brother, Timothy Thomas, and the police claim he had 14 warrants, but they were all misdemeanors for things like traffic tickets, including one over a seatbelt. So when the police approached him, this brother took off running, and as the cops chased him, one cop, Stephen Roach, said he appeared to be reaching for a gun, but this brother was unarmed. But this cop said he feared for his life and had no other choice but to open fire, and he shot this brother in the back. Now, back in 2001, we were tired of what was going on, and the people had enough. So around 200 people gathered at the city council meeting in City Hall. And after they gave them the same old answers about they don't know anything, they have to keep investigating, and they got the same old 9 answers, which made the people even more mad. And the city council members were so scared they wouldn't come outside for 3 hours. Meanwhile, by the police station, a few hundred more people started gathering. And they began to confront the cops, and they started throwing rocks and bottles at them, anything they could find. So then the cops put on their riot gear and started shooting them with beanbags. Now, the people ended up shutting down the city for 4 days, until it stopped on the 4th day during his brother Timothy Thomas' funeral. And hundreds of people marched the streets in peace. Now, by the end, close to 1,000 people were arrested, mostly black people. And they ended up causing about $3.6 million in damage. But unlike their riots, nobody was killed. Now, we always ask questions about how do we make this stop and what can we do? But to tell you the truth, we already know the answer. We know what we have to do. Now it's just time for us to do it. We have to realize we are all we got. And until we stop it, then it's going to continue to happen.
Well, I'm finally glad to see Tracy Hunter's going to jail. And it's a shame she ain't getting more than 6 months.
Justice was not served. What in the was going on with Cincinnati?
Can't do the time, don't do the crime. No one's above the law.
She broke the law. Go to jail.
And I totally agree with the sentence on Judge Tracy. I think the judge did a wonderful job. She should be serving some time.
Terribly sad that we have lost sight that this was truly just about the law and that law being broken. I think it's sad that people want to now turn this into a race issue, and also with the mayor adding his 2 cents, now making it a political issue.
I don't think it's right how they treated Tracy Hunter, dragging her out of the courtroom. If she fell limp, she should have been placed in a chair.
I think it's an atrocity to jail Tracy Hunter. She is not violent. This thing has been going on for years. She deserves to be relieved of this jail term.
I have 2 sons that have committed felony 4s, and they both went to prison. Felt sorry for both of them, but they had to do their time.
It's a case of Tracy Hunter not even having a police record. You would think she would have gotten probation, if nothing else, having a spotless police record. But it became a case of a person who is breaking up the good old boy network at the courthouse. And they did not want to have that.
And now, for Best Performing Actress in a Dramatic Role, ex-Judge Tracy Hunter for her appearance in Monday's courtroom.
The tally now, 71 people injured, 10 new arrests tonight, bringing the total now to 30 arrests. Scenes like this prompted police to close off the streets. This woman was caught in the middle of the mayhem when protesters broke her car windows.
We got bombed. She was trying to take me home on 13th Street. They tried to kill us. We didn't do anything to the people down there. They had to be about 50 of them running us backwards.
A similar situation for this guy who suffered minor cuts when protesters broke his windows. And this man cried with relief when he managed to get away from the rowdy crowd.
And that's the sound of police firing shotguns with rubber bullets and bean bags into the crowd at Washington Park in Over the Rhine.
Trash cans, vendors' carts, whatever they can pick up, they throw, smashing dozens of windows.
At Washington Park, a standoff between angry demonstrators and police in riot gear ends after police fire on the crowd. They use beanbag guns, large rubber bullets, and tear gas. A few people are injured. One woman is left lying on the ground. She has to be taken to the hospital.
I told them we the ones who died. I told them we the ones who died, and they shot me with this.
Many innocent bystanders find themselves caught in the middle.
They down here aggravating the whole party, just shooting at anybody.
That shit.
It's not making no sense.
This is escalated because they shooting innocent people and they shooting kids that ain't got nothing to do with it already.
This truck driver found himself a target. Protesters jump in the passenger side, beat him, and pull him to the ground.
Well, they tried to take off the truck, and I tried to stop them. That didn't work. And here come about 20 more of them around. They started beating the truck and beating me.
Some business owners pull gates in front of their windows. Others are left cleaning up the mess left behind. Police round up some of the protesters and take them away in handcuffs.
You'd think there was a big party downtown, complete with beer and reveling. But no sports teams won a pennant. Instead, this is a violent wake for Timothy Thomas. Or is it?
There's a lot of individuals here that are not participating in this civil disturbance. So not only are we concerned about the crowd, we have to be concerned about the innocent people that are here along with ourselves.
Innocent people like Bob Deerdorf of Davis Furniture left to shake his head at the damage to his store.
I think it's absolutely terrible. Act like fools.
Deerdorf is not alone.
Some of them appear just to be out for the fun of it.
Cincinnati Mayor Charlie Luken says much of the violence has nothing to do with the police shooting.
A lot of what I saw was not people reacting to the event of Saturday night. A lot of what I saw are 12-year-old kids stealing hot dogs from vendors and breaking windows.
So I am shocked because this person had the audacity right here to come to our table and tell us that we are the rudest people that she has ever met. Look at her. She told us we are getting off work, we paying for our food just like everybody else, and she told us that we are the rudest people ever. Here's the thing. What you gotta understand is that you don't know what people going through. Okay, you wanna come over here? You wanna come? She ain't gonna come over here. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Don't talk some real stuff.
Friends that are black, and I love them.
We never said anything about color. We never said anything. So here's the thing. Let me understand.
You're too loud.
We're too loud.
In your opinion, let me show you my money. It's just as green as yours. Rhino, you're so stupid, nigga.
Stupid?
Oh!
No.
So call your black friends a nigga. Call your black friends a nigga.
So she basically just
called us a nigga that you don't call.
A white patron at a local restaurant calls a black patron the N-word.
All of this captured on cell phone video that has now generated thousands of shares and comments on social media.
Oh, you're so stupid.
We tracked down the women in both sides of this video.
WREL Sarah Kruger talked with them all, joins us now live in Raleigh. Of course, Sarah, this happening at a Bonefish in North Hills, right?
David, that's right. It happened right here yesterday evening during happy hour. The woman who used the racial slur told me today she will not apologize for her language. And in fact, she said she would use the same word again.
Just like everybody else.
This minute-long cell phone video shows an encounter between customers at the Bonefish Grill in North Hills.
This person had the audacity right here to come to our table and tell us that we are the rudest people that she has ever met. Look at her.
Then the woman, who we now know is Nancy Goodman, calls another customer the N-word.
You're too loud.
We're too loud.
In your opinion, let me show you my money. It's just as green as yours. Rhino, you're so stupid.
We found Goodman at her home.
I'm a 71-year-old woman who lives in Raleigh. I suffer from tremendous anxiety.
She says that anxiety and the women's behavior pushed her to act as she did.
I'm not going to say I'm sorry to them because they kept pushing at it. And that's all I'd really like to say.
What about your use of the N-word?
I used that word because they forced me into it.
Do you see how that's incredibly offensive?
Yes, I do. That's why I said it. I would say it again to them.
She says she would use that word again to you all.
Wow. Wow. That's sad.
Shonda Stewart is the one who took the cell phone video. Her friend, Lakeisha Shaw, is the one who was called the racial slur.
I don't care how you feel like we should have been acting. If I was standing on the table with 3 heads in a purple jumpsuit, nothing justified you to come to my table and call me a stupid.
Goodman says she regrets not asking management to tell the women to be quiet, but she made one thing clear.
So you're not sorry about saying the N-word?
No, no.
We were invited earlier today to a private viewing of that body cam and dash cam video involving Eugene Grant and the 2 officers that responded. Now, in that video, you can see the officers responding to a call from a local business about a group of musicians being disruptive and blocking his entrance. You can see the male officer approaching the young fella's musician, Eugene Grant, as he puts and raises his hand up while walking near him. Now, you then see Grant reacting by raising his trumpet up towards the officer, telling him to move away. There is a scuffle between Grant and the officer, and the crowd around him gets bigger. Everyone starts to pull out their cell phones. You can see the officers pull out their tasers. Chief Ferguson said this was done in an effort to gain control of the situation and the crowd, but no taser was discharged at the time of this incident. There's a rally being planned on Sunday by a group of musicians. It's to support Eugene and the brass band members. One of the organizers told me that they want equal opportunities for the working musicians in New Orleans. Now, also, police said all charges against Eugene have been dropped. And here's a part of a statement released by his attorney, Megan Kiefer. It reads in part, quote, "What is clear from the video is that as a community, we are lucky that the situation was not more catastrophic and that we all need to work together to ensure that it does not reoccur."
Yeah, can I get out? Can I get out my glove box?
I don't know about this one.
Yeah, right? do you have like a badge number or nothing? 5174. Detective, man, I didn't even see that. I didn't see your badge, sir. I can't even lie to you. All right, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna just record for your safety.
Thank you very much. And I'm calling 911 because all right, cool. Yeah, I see it.
I don't know why you asked me for my ID. But...
Yeah, as soon as we could confirm that we're safe.
I'm not driving. What the hell?
Yeah, we're being pulled over by a pretty aggressive cop here that doesn't have any type of identification to show. That's your description, right? Hi, sir. He's just being very aggressive with no type of identification. Nothing scared the hell out of us. We got 911 on the call here.
Okay, listen. We're all legitimate cops. There's no police cars. We're all good. We're all good.
Yes, sir.
I don't know why you open the door like that. I'm a passenger. So I don't know what's going on.
Can I talk to you for
I doubt 911.
Sure.
Okay, my name is Sergeant Welch, okay?
Okay.
I'm with the Newtown Police Department.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we're investigating.
I'm going to hang up now. We got 2 good cops here.
and we are looking for an African American female.
Female?
Wow, I just picked her. Here's my ID.
What?
I don't want to get into actual details at the moment, but we did have a legitimate theft.
Okay.
So this officer over here that's in plain clothes saw you come out of somewhere and jump in the Uber.
I just got off the bus, so no, he didn't. And I just got in this lift like 5 minutes ago, so no, he didn't see me doing anything.
So you got off a bus.
I got off the 104, going to Newtown Square. You could ask the bus driver, he probably still at the terminal, because I got off 5 minutes ago.
Where's that stop?
Newtown Square, right up there, right next to the BMT Bank. And my job is right here, Sunrise Senior Living. And you can ask them.
Okay, so is this a Uber?
This is a Lyft.
Okay.
You can see it right there in the front.
Well, Uber, Lyft, same thing. Okay. What's that?
I'm a little bit hostile because y'all accusing me of something, and I don't even know what's going on.
Okay.
This don't even feel real right now.
Well, it's real. Okay, it's real. So you got off the 104.
Yeah,
ma'am.
There's nothing in there.
You got,
I just want to look at this guy because he keeps looking at me.
He's with me.
All right,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are you
Continue.
recording us?
I'm recording, definitely.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm black. I got to record though. Sorry.
It's understood. So we just need to clear up a few things.
Go ahead.
And then hopefully we can get you on your way. So you work at Sunrise Assisted Living?
Yep, I sure do.
Okay. Very good.
My badge is right here. Been working there for 1.5 years.
Okay. Awesome. Is it typical that you take the bus and then
very typical
get a ride down, an Uber or Lyft? Or
no.
Do you have any ID on you?
I do have ID, but I don't understand why you guys are asking me for ID.
Okay.
What
well,
is
like
the
I
problem?
explained to you, there was a theft in the area, and it was exactly in the area of where you were.
All right.
And we are looking for an African American female. Okay, and you are fitting the description. So all I need to do is if I could see your ID.
Fitting the description. What was the description? African American. That's it.
Like I said, I don't want to get into too many details, but yes, an African American female.
You want my ID? Sure.
I'm sorry?
Here you go.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Because like really, honestly, I want to clear this up. I want to clear you so we can get you to work.
Yeah,
That's
because
all. I know you want to get there, I understand.
3 o'clock,
Right,
that's the time I got to be there.
Unfortunately, somebody committed a very serious crime today. Whether that was you.
It wasn't me.
Okay, listen to what I'm saying now. Whether it was you or not, somebody put you in this predicament, not us. We're just doing our job and following up on what we should be doing, following up on leads.
I'm a volunteer firefighter, so
Okay.
that's understandable.
Awesome. Where do you run? Here's the game plan, okay? We have a couple people coming down, some FBI agents.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they'll be just a minute, my man.
I can show you that I just called my lift, so it
Okay.
should be no reason that I'm being questioned.
Okay,
I
but
just got off of the bus,
Listen.
and I just got in this
Okay,
lift.
listen, I understand that, okay? But here's what we need to do, and if we don't do it, we're not doing our job. And
Okay.
then I have to answer to my
What
boss.
time did this occur?
Okay.
Because I have a receipt for H&M where I can show you what time where I was at.
Okay. That could be anybody's receipt for all we know.
It's my receipt. My card number is on there too. I have my card in my wallet. So
Where was that? H&M?
H&M.
Where's
Yes.
an H&M? Is that at the
69th Street.
Mall?
69th Street.
Okay.
I was nowhere near this area an hour ago.
I think before we even get into that, we won't need to, because these guys coming down here with a witness are either going to say like yay or nay. That's it. And if they say
If
no,
they say yay, then it's false
well,
because I
listen,
can show
okay.
you that I didn't
But
do
if
it.
they say nay, you're going to be out of here quicker than you can bat an eye. Okay.
Okay. So can y'all go up to my job and tell y'all that I'm pulled over and accused of a crime?
If you need us to do that when we're done
I
here,
do.
when we're done here, one of us can do that. Okay.
Now to outrage on a college campus after this photo was posted on Instagram and published by ProPublica. It shows 3 college students with guns in front of a memorial for civil rights icon Emmett Till. Ole Miss University saying they will not be suspended. And tonight, Emmett Till's family is speaking out. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore.
Tonight, growing outrage over this photo of fraternity brothers from Ole Miss posing next to a vandalized memorial for Emmett Till. The image posted on Instagram back in March and just published by ProPublica. Till's cousin reacting tonight.
Seeing them standing there and smiling at a place that we think is solemn ground, it's definitely disappointing.
That photo reopening deep wounds. At 14 years old, Emmett Till was abducted and lynched in 1955 for allegedly whistling at a white woman, his anguished mother leaving the casket open for the world to see. Till's death helped galvanize the civil rights movement. Tonight, these students have been suspended by the Kappa Alpha fraternity, but not expelled. The school says it got a complaint about the photo in March and reported it to the FBI. Ole Miss calling it, quote, offensive and hurtful, but adding it did not violate the school's code of conduct. We were unable to reach the 3 students.
I think it's very ridiculous that the university won't suspend them or expel them. I think that that's very crazy and very disrespectful.
And Cecilia, there are several signs along the river honoring Emmett Till, including this one, but even it is riddled with bullet holes. The group that maintains these memorials says it one day hopes to make all of them bulletproof.
White nationalism, fact versus fiction. That was the name of the event held on UTK's campus tonight. Good evening. I'm Kim Chapman.
And I'm Joshua. You may remember Rick Tyler from Polk County, who ran for Congress in 2016 under the slogan, "Make America White Again." Sidney Edwards was there at his event tonight speaking to protesters and Tyler himself.
Campus police, Knoxville PD, the sheriff's office, and state troopers have the place surrounded while folks in protest yield signs and chants against the KKK, Nazis, and hate on campus. Folks gathered outside the alumni building on campus against Rick Tyler and what they believe he stands for.
I think they're trying to spread hate and they're trying to intimidate people.
While folks protested those walking into the event, Rick Tyler got ready for his speech.
I'm 61 years old, baby boomer. I'm a white, male, conservative, Christian, constitutional, patriotic guy.
Who believes America is in trouble. He says he's trying to get his message across to young people, who he says have not been taught the truth about history, demographics, ethnicity, and culture.
Young people need to realize that, especially in this day and time we're living in, with technology being as advanced as it is, it's far more easy for people to be programmed, brainwashed, propagandized, if you will.
Tyler says a constitutional government is out the window, and he says the term white nationalist is something the United States as a whole used to be back in the 60s.
This is the latest boogeyman. This is the latest catchphrase. It's the latest buzzword that has been coined and is now being proliferated to try to scare young people in particular.
Whether folks are scared or motivated, they do not believe Rick Tyler should be allowed on campus for an event on what they say is hate speech.
I'm here to be in solidarity with the community that overwhelmingly does not tolerate this sort of intolerance.
The University of Tennessee is about love and acceptance and diversity, and this is not what we stand for.
However, Tyler says he's not a hateful person.
You know, I say, now, are you accusing me of disliking or hating somebody because of their ethnicity? No, that's not me, you know, not in a million years. If you're asking me if I'm somebody who's ethnocentric, sure, yeah, you know, I am that.
Birth of a Nation, when it was released in 1915, it just had this extraordinary impact.
When you see Birth of a Nation, you know exactly what D.W. Griffith, the actors, were saying about African Americans.
Audiences today, as well as audiences when it first came out, were absolutely shocked by some of the images that are in The Birth of a Nation. We can look at that film and we can see some of the black stereotypes that are going to, in many ways, dominate Hollywood cinema for decades to come. Predominant images there are these black bucks, these brutal African-American men. And during the Reconstruction period, they overtake the Southern community, they stop the whites from voting, they set up their own legislative session, and there we see Griffith really revealing to us these fears, these ties between, we see the ties between sex and racism. We see placards. They want intermarriages made legal. We see them leering at women. We also have a mulatto figure in the movie. She's the most sexual of the women, lusting after kind of power. So we get these stereotypes, these caricatures. And what made all this even more of a caricature was the fact that the major black characters in Birth of a Nation were played by white actors in blackface. So you don't have any kind of subtlety in the performances. You also have a sequence where a mulatto character, Silas Lynch, wants to force into marriage Griffith's leading lady, Lillian Gish, a blonde, frail, delicate woman. Well, audiences were just terrified for Lillian Gish, that she might be violated by this black man. There's another sequence where a renegade, Gus, pursues a young white woman, and rather than to submit to him, she throws herself from this cliff. I mean, you can't quite believe what you're seeing. And the movie, you know, of course, comes to this climax with the rise of the Klan. And Griffith really believed that this was a noble group. And the mainstream audience seeing the film took this as fact.
And when you see films like that, it clearly shows these people are afraid of us. They're afraid of our potential. They're afraid of themselves. And that's the problem with that movie.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RIP to the brother Timothy Thomas and all our people who have been unjustly murdered. We don't have to wait for our blood to be shed to defend ourselves. And at the end of the day, nobody is going to defend us but us. And if we spent half the energy fighting for ourselves instead of fighting for a country designed to destroy us, then we would be a lot better off. You can't change the system from within the system. The system is designed to be this way. America was founded in bloodshed, and you can't expect a different result. And at the end of the day, we have to realize we don't have any other choice but to create our own systems. A system meant to protect us and put us in a position where we can be prosperous. But as long as we let this system maintain itself, then we're going to get the same results. We have to respond with more urgency than they do. When something happens, they have a zero tolerance policy with us. And until we adopt the same kind of zero tolerance policy, we're going to continue to face injustices. And we can't afford to continue this for another 100 years. We don't have any other choice but to come together. We can't afford to have the petty differences everybody else have. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.